Interested in this recent exercise done by the UK Navy, quite a big one for the UK. I guess part of my question here is, we don't hear a lot about the UK Navy perhaps anymore. What's their capability like? Once upon a time, the best in the world, but where do they sit now?
Thanks for having me, Tom, and thanks for always mentioning my Navy Reserve affiliation. As a reminder, as I'm not on duty, these views are my own. Yes, so just coming up this week, over the next couple of weeks, there will be a major military exercise off the coast of Scotland, Strike Warrior. This is an exercise that's done primarily by NATO allies every other year. There will be 10 nations, but of interest to Australia, Australia is taking place this year as the only official non-NATO member, but this is 13,000 personnel, 130 ships, 3 submarines, 150 aircraft, and they'll be exercising interoperability. And we always talk about the two major points of a military exercise. One is to send a message, and the second is to actually exercise the systems and the techniques if countries ever have to go to war together. But to your question, this is sort of a coming out party again. For the UK, the Defence Minister, Ben Wallace, said that the deployment of particularly the HMS Queen Elizabeth, the UK's new aircraft carrier, just left port this weekend for its first 6-month deployment and is coming to this neighborhood. We'll visit 40 countries over 28 weeks. And Ben Wallace said, the Minister of Defence said, this is to show that the UK wants to be part of the international order and help shape it. So very much I'm trying to make a symbol here as well.
It is, of course, still the island nation, so Navy a big part of it. Russia, meanwhile, has tested out a supersonic missile, it's called. This is amidst rising tensions with Ukraine. Is this the sort of thing that would actually be used in terms of Ukraine conflict, or a threat more likely?
Yes, it certainly could. So, Tom, as these tensions are rising between Russia and Ukraine in the Black Sea, very much kind of back to the symbolism of an action, this is a modern supersonic anti-ship weapon. Russia tweeted the footage of this launch this weekend, and they wanted to show that they have this capability. But it also comes as the U.S. put a Coast Guard cutter into the Black Sea, the first of its kind in over a decade, and wants to show that this is a quote-unquote aircraft carrier killer. So not also possibly a coincidence with the weekend where the UK deployed its first aircraft carrier for its first deployment. So definitely symbolism, but also a very modern capability.
Final question on the topic of buying arms. I was a bit surprised about this. Australia essentially added to this list to approve to buy US weapons. I wouldn't have thought we'd have an issue. Wouldn't they want us to be armed to the teeth?
Yes, so this week the Biden administration approved a foreign military sales case for Australia. So just about to the tune of $2.5 billion Australian dollars to purchase about 160 modifications of tanks and several Army helicopters. To answer your question, absolutely. This is a formality that the U.S. State Department has to report to Congress to say the sales of these weapons are in the interest of the United States. So, of course, there was a lot of language put into that notification that said that the U.S. and Australia are a close alliance, the Indo-Pacific is of growing importance, and it is in the U.S. national interest for Australia to be able to buy these weapons. Now, this isn't the actual purchase itself. This is a notification that goes to Congress, and then once that is approved, which it will be, then the countries and the contractors will put together negotiations and kind of agree on the final number and the final package.
Just a final one, actually, question without notice, which I know you always look forward to, Jason, given the multiple hats you wear. Recent comments from Mike Pizzullo made headlines around the world, including in the UK, talking about the prospects, the beating drums of war, some pretty strong comments from Peter Dutton as well. How do they compare to what we're hearing from other leaders or other government representatives around the rest of the sort of Western world?
Well, to answer your question of how they compare, they sort of are on the leading edge of provocative, right? You're seeing these languages. So every time we see reports like that, I always ask, who is the foreign audience and who is the domestic audience, right? So it makes sense. In the U.S., for example, it's very bipartisan to compete against China, right? So it's a strong political statement, both domestically and internationally, to be strong on China. The question is, for Australians, where does that fall? Is it falling on a certain audience domestically to be very tough on China? And in order to make that statement, what are the motivations there? But overall, we're going to see a lot of more increase, I think over the next year, a lot more increasingly brazen rhetoric from all sides. It just makes sense in this environment. There's an interest in all sides to do so. The question is what will be happening behind the scenes to move more sort of diplomatic and economic solutions to this current situation.